Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Welcome back to the final part of the project management video series and the Long Live People and You Can Learn Anything campaign. My name is Saif Sekalala, and let's just get right into it because I want to keep this video brief, but yet to also kind of emphasize the some very important stuff since this is the very last video. And just to, in terms of the coverage, what are we looking at in this video? We have two main items. Uh, the first one is chapter 13 of Professor Belinda Goodrich's book. Yeah, Professor Goodrich, Professor Belinda Goodrich. All right, and from her awesome book. Seriously, her materials are really good. For me anyway. So chapter 13 is project execution, and chapter 14 is controlling project controlling the project, and finally from um, chapter 15 is closing the project and exam prep. Looks like I forgot to add that here, but just know that we'll get to it later anyway. In the later slides, you'll see at the top. We can just get ahead here real quick. You see there it is right there. It's part of chapter 15. All right, so let's just get started. As always, I like to give a disclaimer. So this videos, to say the least, like just, I mean, it goes without saying, you cannot pass. I mean, well, I'm pretty. The odds are 90% in favor of what I'm about to say, and that is that you cannot pass the PMP exam just using my videos. All right, so there's the odds again. There's 90%, 90 plus percent favor. The odds favor that statement right there. You have to. If you have a CAPM, just still go through the process of studying like I am right now. Okay, and then, or if you don't have the CAPM, excuse me, excuse me, if you don't have the CAPM, PMI in any case requires you to take before you can sit for the exam. In addition to other qualifications, you have to, study with a licensed vendor. All right, do some prep work. So I think I've emphasized that enough. It's an expensive, you don't want to pay for it because, just paying the fee and then failing the exam, you really don't want to do that to yourself. Okay, so I think I've made that very clear. All right, moving right along. So, oh, looks like I forgot to change the part up here. Oh, good lord, sorry about that. So, let's just get right into it. So, chapter 13 is executing the project, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. I'm going to emphasize a couple of things from this chapter, okay, from Professor Goodrich's book, okay? The 2 points that I want to emphasize here, I have them highlighted in blue, okay? Excuse me once more. My allergies are bothering me so really bad, I guess, because it's change of the seasons. So sorry about this. I gotta just bear with me, please. Sorry about that. So the two major points I'm going to emphasize are the manage project knowledge and the manage stakeholder engagement. And when I say I'm going to emphasize them, here's what I mean. I mean the fact that under with these two kind of activities, right, like tasks, right, as you execute the project, what there are two sets of remember we talked about what Professor Goodrich and I also abbreviated as the ETOs, all right? The part of which is like the tools and techniques, okay? And for the manage project knowledge task, a couple of some things that are really going to help you out as you do that, as just execute the project. You want to look at and this is where the nuance, the art, okay, both the science and the art of being a project manager. This is where it really like it kicks in. So conflict management, okay, cultural awareness, negotiation. Then you have observation and conversation, and finally political awareness. So again, we're looking at in terms of the communication skills, the kind of the interpersonal and team skills and communication. You know, those are the skills that are going to help you as you manage project knowledge, as you kind of just because you're coordinating between teams, you're doing a lot of coordination, a lot of communicating, a lot of interaction with different parties, stakeholders, and etc. So again, conflict management. Okay, there will be there's going to be differences of opinion in terms of stylistic differences. No, we should do the task this way, or no, we should, right? So you'll have to like kind of mediate. You'll have to just really get good at mediating, managing conflict. Okay, cultural awareness is another one. And when we say that, we don't mean culture in terms of American or European culture. That could be part of it, or American or Asian culture, whatever. That could be part of it. Do you remember, like for instance, when we talked about the first set of slides, I was using the Jones, the example of you being the PM for the Joneses. The Jones family is the client, and you are supervising, you're the PM for their subdivision, right? They're building 100 houses, McMansions. So, and remember, I was saying how like there's you gotta know who's who in the family, and there's some other maybe powerful people, some other people to be aware of in terms of who wields the power and who, there's the nuances of the situation. Okay, negotiation. This is related to conflict management above. Okay, what I just mentioned earlier, and then observation and conversation. Again, just interacting with people, observing, conversing, learning from them, and kind of just teaching them, teaching them, learning from them, that kind of thing. And political awareness, power. This is just in terms of just plain old power. Remember, before we're looking at, Baba runs the company. Papa still has, like his hands off, eyes on. Baba runs the company. But remember, little, even though nominally, he's just co-CEO, but he's Papa's favorite. Okay, so you gotta, be aware of you know those factors right there, factors like that as you're executing your project. Okay, in terms of managing knowledge or coordinating, just communication and interaction as carry out the project. Okay, and then with stakeholder engagement, you have similar kind of just similar skills in terms of like communication, right? And so now wait a minute here. I might have been because they're very similar. So there's two sets of skills with knowledge, with knowledge management. Actually, so I have it the other way around, right? The ones I just mentioned are the managed stakeholder engagement, which now that I think about it, actually, I was looking at the wrong page here. Okay, with manage project knowledge, the five ones, but they're related though. All right, like they're related in terms of communication. So you have active listening, facilitation, leadership, networking, and political awareness. Now, political awareness is there you go. Like like I said, they're very similar to the other set, the set for managed stakeholder engagement. But just to be clear, now I'm talking about which I meant to address the first one, the first point right here, which is manage project knowledge. Okay, but in the end, I've kind of done it the other way around. So just to recap again, manage project knowledge. You have active listening. Okay, just listen to what's being said and what's not being said. Know which questions to ask. Okay. Just listen to understand and not to respond. A lot of the time you know what I mean? Like just, you gotta learn to be patient you're not gonna be, I mean, you might pull off a good job from time to, just overall, but as a project manager or just in general and as a professional, patience is a very, very important trait to have, a very important virtue to have. Okay. So, and with, in terms of active listening, patience is one of those things that you need. Facilitation. This is in the context of meetings. Meetings, you'll have like phone calls, formal meetings, informal meetings, but just overall, the key here is: are you facilitating this meeting or this interaction well enough to where you're helping to guide the group to like to come to a successful decision, solution, or a conclusion of whatever it is you guys are trying to solve. Okay, so that's the important thing. Now, the networking, again, this is just all related. Just networking, just knowing who's who, and um, I for one, I tend to be believe it's Yiddish, a schmoozer. I'm very, I get my work done when I'm at the office. Like I just obviously, I love, I gotta get my work done, but you know, in between, like the water cooler and whatever, I love just talking to people and getting to know people and whatnot. But even if that's not your style, you might be an introvert, but networking is just, again, very, very important in terms of as you kind of because you're acquiring knowledge, right? You're acquiring knowledge. You're teaching people, like I said earlier. You're learning, you're teaching, and so networking comes in there. And political awareness is that I just mentioned it under managed stakeholder engagement. You remember, like, again, going back to the Joneses, Baba, Little, and the minority shareholders, etc. All right, political awareness is also a very, very important aspect of the manage project knowledge. So again, those are the two just special points that I wanted to touch on for this slide. Okay, I'm just gonna. It doesn't matter the color. It was just, in fact, all of them different color. All right. And then chapter 14, controlling the project. So you have four processes here: monitor and control project work, control scope, control schedule, control costs. Now, I gotta warn you, this is the chapter where you have math, and it's plenty. It is a lot of math. It's a lot of formulas. There's a lot of formulas, and just what I'm gonna tell you is just to share my own experience. A lot of us hate math. Now, me as an adult, I've come to love math, right? I might not be very very good at it, but I love it. I've learned its beauty as an adult. Okay? And to be honest, hey, the good news is on the exam, there's very few questions overall. If I'm not mistaken, Professor Goodrich points out, I believe, and other folks, when you Google this, you'll see that, you know, percentage wise, you're going to have very few questions, in terms of like, having these as formulas. But you cannot ignore them. So even if it's a single digit percentage, if we're talking like maybe anywhere from maybe 3 to 6, 7 something percent, it's not going to be it's right. Like, but there's a lot of formulas, and just be prepared for that. Give yourself time. Um, Professor Goodrich gives us very good. So this is what she has these little boxes in her book. All right, and she calls them Belinda's hint. Belinda being her first name, Professor Belinda Goodrich. All right. They're very helpful. I'll tell you that. And so, for instance, take a look at this one right here. Okay. There's what we're advised to do, and when you look online, you'll see other instructors are advising us to do the same thing. To have what they're calling I believe they're using the term a formula dump of like just a number of formulas that you want to kind of really memorize, for lack of a better way to put it. Excuse me. Right. And so, for instance, here goes. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 key tips that Professor Goodrich is giving us. Number one, variance calculations are always subtraction. So when we talk about variance, we're talking about schedule variance, cost variance, and variance at completion. So that's SV, CV, and VAC. Okay, schedule variance, cost variance, and variance at completion. Negative variance is always bad. I'm not gonna get into the details here, but basically it has to do with like basically just being late, for instance, with schedule and whatnot, being behind schedule. Performance index calculation is always division. So you have schedule performance index, cost performance index, and to complete performance index. And finally, the last tip from her here is a performance index of less than one is bad for schedule and cost performance index, but good for to complete performance index. I'm not gonna delve deep into this at all. This is just some good tips for you to keep in mind. And I really hope at least just one person watching this video benefits from these. Okay. All right. So moving right along, finally to the last chapter, chapter 15. And in this chapter rather, Professor Goodrich, we're looking at two, and again, and by the way, her, I keep, because yes, I am using Professor Goodrich's book, but it's based on the PMBOK guide, right? The PMI's PMBOK guide. So, two main processes at the end of the project that you have, okay? Number one is validating scope, and what that refers to is basically this is a very sensitive. If you've done your work well throughout the project, then you're gonna be okay here because, but validating scope, this is where if you've managed expectations correctly, you've done everything we've been talking about in terms of communication, like facilitation, communication, etc. Finally, this is where now you're handing over the deliverable to the client, right? So let's say the subdivision, ah, it's done. You guys have completed the McMansions are beautiful. They look really nice. I've worked in a lot of places where usually the deliverable is a report. Okay, and this report is not just a report. Like this has data in it. This is some important data. I worked once with a firm that used to was consulting. They did a lot of consulting for companies that I think doing research in terms of introducing new drugs on the market. So there's FDA processes involved there, right? That report is not just a mere report. There's a lot of there's a lot of like sensitive info in there, right? And so it used to be like, right, but that's a validating scope. So you know, basically just confirming with the stakeholder, customer, or end user, you're having them accept the completed deliverables. Okay, and but again, you have nothing to worry about if you've done everything right. And then the closed project or phase, the second process, in terms of what's involved here is just closing the project or phase. Now, you see how I have them highlighted. Let me actually expand this just a little bit for now, and I'm gonna go back to the. So you see how I have highlighted the phase here. It can get confusing. Well, don't over my advice. What's anyway in any case, what works for me, and I just you don't want to overthink it, right? But like you're closing the project. That's easy enough to like kind of just comprehend. But remember, in terms of phases, right? Remember that the major that you have the beginning and the closure at the very end, and within that you have this processes: planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and the R, this kind of this spin, this plan, do, check, act cycle. One thing I will mention here that's very helpful for you to note is in traditional, you have two main groups of types of projects. And then there might be like other different ones, there might be combinations. We have the traditional waterfall project or the agile project. And with the traditional waterfall project, you have like the kind of the processes, the phases are distinct. Whereas in the agile type of project, you have the sprints, what's called sprints, right? And in each of these, you have develop, test, integrate, test, design, right? And then test. It's a cycle. It's kind of the cycles overlap in terms of where you have this sprint one, and you do it via priority. What are the highest priority features? Second highest priority features, medium priority features, lower priority, etc. Right? So you know, versus traditional waterfall, you have requirements, design, develop the project, the deliverable, the product, or the service, perhaps, right? Test and then deploy. But again, with agile, the phases overlap, and Professor Goodrich points out the fact that with agile projects, if there's an early closure, I'm not going to get into that too much here, but like basically, many times you'll have an early whatever reason, the sponsor will pull the plug on the project. And with the agile types of projects, you will have made some good progress early on. So by the time, even if you're like at 20, 30, 40% completion, and then the project is stopped, remember the highest priority features, highest and medium priority features, more than likely will at least have been, a big chunk of them will have been done regardless. Okay. Now, finally, exam prep. So all this has been, uh, this entire set of videos has been for the to help y'all to help us all. Just put it in a different color here. Put it in bright red and put it in yellow. The PMP exam. The PMP exam. And by now, anybody that's watching this set of videos knows the importance of the PMP exam. For those of us that are in industries where it's relevant, the, having the PMP credential opens up doors for you. This is a truism that you're going to see in video after video. It's a high stake exam, and you do not want to just put yourself through the torture of failing this exam after paying all that much money and going through all that trouble. So study, study, study. Needless to say, I hope those videos have helped you. One thing that I encourage that I use is triangulation, and what I mean by this is, you see how I'm using Professor Goodrich's book, but guess what? I Google. I also use Google. See, let me just actually hit the back button here so you can see, right? Just to show you, voila. As I was prepping this presentation, right? Like I Googled this one. What's the difference between a project and a phase? Because I had to review this, right, from the get go. Remember, I covered the plan, do, check, act cycle. Let's go back to the picture right here. All right, right? But I had to just triangulate and just check your facts. If you don't understand something, look it up elsewhere, right? In this case, for instance, I was able to come across, well, first of all, Google Bird, the AI, Google's answer to Chat GPT, gave me this, which is helpful, but then led me, there's a final, the source of the info. So just study hard. The other thing that I encourage is, Professor Goodrich also encourages this, is use mnemonics. Mnemonics. Sometimes you can. I want to keep this video brief, so I'm not gonna read the one she has about bats and eagles and bats and mice and stuff. But really, they help with those formulas right there. There's like cost variance and SPI, CPI. Those really help out. And know yourself and use whatever works for you. In my case, the Feynman technique, for instance, this right here, what I'm doing, doing these videos, um, for me, it works for me. Like in terms of just like when I find that I enjoy, the best way for me to learn, one of the best ways of like the best way for me to learn something is to teach it, to kind of try to explain it to someone else, right? In fact, Feynman technique, there's a page I have here. It, like study the topic and pretend, that expression from, I believe it's a common expression, but like it was in the movie Philadelphia with Denzel Washington and what's the gentleman from Forrest Gump, right? Explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old, or is it a 5-year-old, whatever. Explain it, like teach it to a child, like So in my case here, I'm not. I hope I'm not, coming off as being condescending or whatever, or like kind of, I'm not. Well, I hope everything has been clear. I hope I've done a good enough job to where things make sense, right? And so for me, that's just that's my own technique. But for you, just learn what works for you and use it. Okay. Uh, just finally, you can do this. All right, you can do this. Believe in yourself. Um, just give yourself time. Uh, just have confidence at the end of the day. So the practice, a lot of there's a lot of tools out there, a lot of boot camps. In Professor Goodrich's book, there's a lot of practice. There's a bunch of practice exams at the end. Okay, so what most folks advise online is, don't consider yourself ready until you're scoring 75% in the mock tests. Okay, if you're scoring below 75%, nah, you don't want to risk that. I'm never gonna tell you about there's a common kind of like a rumor in terms of what the pass grade is on average. I'm not even gonna talk about it. Just I'm just gonna say, what the kind of like the unanimous advice is. Practice, study to where when you do the mock exams, you're scoring above 75%. It has been a pleasure for me to do these videos. Just let's go back to this has been the final part of the project management videos. I really really enjoyed doing these, and so let me know. Like I said, give me some feedback if you've enjoyed these. I can do some more in the future. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. And this is Safe Seglala, and the next set of videos is going to be about Drakeology, the study of Drake. That's right. Yes, so I hope you'll come back for those as well. Again, one last time, thanks for watching, and see you soon. I'll, I hope just I hope you'll come back to my channel. All right, bye for now.